What is up, YouTube? It is your boy, Kendrick Youngblood. Before we get started with the video, I just want to say thank you so much for the support. I'm like 3 subs away from 100. I got a special video for y'all when I get to 100 subs. Make sure to subscribe. Don't forget to like and comment. It really helps get the videos out there. You know what I'm saying? I'm rocking the Wakanda necklace. I don't know why, I just felt like it.
Okay, is this Wakanda?
No, it's Kansas.
And finally, I cut my beard. Godly. But without further ado, let's get started. 6 editing tricks you forgot to use on your poems. Okay, so the first editing trick you're probably forgetting, and by the way, this isn't just like beginner poets, this might be experienced poets too. I see this happen a lot. They forget to check for verb-tense agreement. All right, and I particularly see this issue when it comes to narrative poems that have a beginning, middle, and end. They have a sort of plot or sequence of events that occur. In poems like that, a lot of times there's a tense that you want to maintain in order for it to make sense. All right, so if you're writing about an event that happened in your past, make sure to consistently use past tense verbs. If you're jumping from past to present to future to past to present, like, it gets really confusing for readers. It is very easy to forget to check for that simply because no one really brings it up very often. But I would highly recommend next time you write a poem, go ahead and just check to make sure all the tense correlates, all right? The next editing trick you are probably forgetting to use would be identifying and strengthening the temperaments in your poems that are lacking. I haven't actually done a video on temperaments yet, but a quick crash course, there are 4. It would be story, structure, music, and imagination. Imagination would be the imagery or the illustrations in the poem. The story would be the sequence of events from beginning to end that occur. The structure would be the form, and the music would be the sound. I'm going to give you a quick heads up and say my strongest temperament would probably be structure. However, one area I seriously lack in, most people who read my poems can probably identify this on the initial drafts, it would be story, okay? I'm not a very good storyteller. I just am not. So a lot of times when I am trying to convey a certain event that happened in my past, sure, the form might look pretty good. I also kind of specialize in imagination, like imagery. Even the imagery might be pretty good. However, the story is pretty whack. So sometimes I'll have to go back and think to myself, what is the story like for this poem? Is this a story that I would enjoy hearing about? And if the answer is no, I go back into the poem and edit. The next editing trick you're probably forgetting to use would be making sure that the form of the poem reflects and complements the content of the poem. In other words, the message you're trying to convey. And by form, I mean the shape of the poem, the structure, the organization of the lines on the page, yeah, all that. You want to make sure it well reflects the tone and message of the poem. Say, for example, you wanted to write a poem about 2 romantic partners. Couplets might be the way to go. Couplets being 2-line stanzas throughout the poem. That pretty much reflects the couple you're trying to talk about. You see what I'm saying? Another example, say you want to write about a traumatic event or something chaotic or like a feeling of brokenness. You might want to scatter the words across the page, have a lot of open white space between the words and stuff like that. That really reflects the brokenness you are trying to express. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes you might write a poem and it has a particular form that you like, and maybe you've just grown accustomed to using that form, not really thinking about whether that's the best way to reflect the message. Try to keep that in mind. See if you can have the form as well as the content complement each other. In fact, there's actually a quote I forgot to bring up, or at least I almost forgot. It's by Robert Creeley, and he says that form is never more than an extension of content. In other words, they go hand in hand. All right, the next editing trick I want to bring up, it kind of relates to the previous one. In this case, I'm talking about playing with line length. Changing the line length does 2 things, as I've noticed at least. It alters how quickly the reader's eyes move down the page, and it also dictates where the eyes move on the page. All right, so I'll elaborate real quick. So if you have really short lines, okay, if you have really short lines going down the page, that means the reader's eyes can move quickly down the page. But if you have really long lines, that kind of slows down the rate at which their eyes move downward. Another way in which you can change the line length to alter speed would also be scattering the words across the page. It kind of like makes the reading disjointed. Even if you're reading it in your head, it's kind of hard to pace yourself as you normally would. And that can actually slow them down. That also dictates where the eyes move along the page. By scattering the words, you can make someone look more to the right of the page as opposed to the left. I'm realizing I keep doing like right versus left, and like my camera's inverted, so you're gonna see this as left and this is right. Whatever, you get what I'm trying to say, all right? The next editing trick, it's a small thing. It's not even mandatory, but I just noticed there's no downside to doing it and yet people forget, is adding page numbers to poems that are longer than a page. Based on what I've heard from editors, they kind of like it if poems that are multiple pages long have page numbers, simply because it makes it easier for them to reference the location of something that they might have liked that they want to bring up to other editors. So the easier you make things on an editor, the more likely they are to enjoy the poem. That's a small little edit. I mean, it's not an edit to the poem itself, but it's an edit that I think will benefit your submission in general. So keep that in mind. The sixth and final editing trick you're probably forgetting to use, or who knows, maybe you've never thought of using this in the first place, would actually be removing the articles in the poem, all of them, to see which ones are actually necessary. And by articles, I mean the, a, and. These can be useful a lot of times in clarifying whether you want to be specific or more broad about a particular object you're talking about, or a particular individual you're talking about, or a particular place you're talking about. However, a lot of times I see these used as fillers. They're not actually necessary in clarifying anything. They don't provide context, and they just simply take up space. You typically want your poem to be as concise as possible. Use as few words to convey the most that you can. That's just a pet peeve of mine. If I notice that there's just a lot of unnecessary filler words that don't really do anything for me, then it kind of turns me off. It like, okay, that sounded weird. It tunes me out. It removes me from the poem. There we go. I'm not saying remove the articles for good. I'm just saying remove all of them, see where the poem still works without those articles and where the poem really needs those articles in order to work. Hopefully these 6 editing tricks will help you. I forget to use literally half of these a lot, particularly the checking for verb-tense agreement, the including page numbers, and then removing the articles. I forget to do that all the time, but I'm telling you, if you just like make a list of these and make sure to go through the list anytime you're editing a poem, it'll like make your poem miles better. I can guarantee you that. So if you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, comment below. Again, the engagement really helps. I am 3 subs away from 100. I got a really good video I'm gonna give to y'all, and I'm sure y'all are gonna enjoy it a lot. With that being said, I'm out. Deuces.